Hey guys, if you need welding gas, go see the boys at Cool Gas. If you're in New Zealand, yep, go see these guys. They'll look after you. Cool Gas, New Zealand. Right, morning guys. So welcome back to Outlaw Kustoms again. So on this video we're still working on this block, or on this engine. So we're going to put all the valve keepers in, basically clean everything up, make sure all the balls are clean, dead clean. We lapped all the valves in, pulled 2 pistons. What happened was, if you haven't watched the earlier videos, this motor was rebuilt, say about 15 years ago-ish, not 100% sure on the exact date. It obviously had some head studs remade, but they also didn't have all the nuts. The head was sat on, it was loosely, the nuts were done up, and it sat for 15-ish years, waiting for obviously all the rest of the nuts to be put on and torqued out and all that sort of stuff. But unfortunately, about 6 years ago, I guess, it got moved from inside a workshop, because the person who had it stored moved from the owner. That was actually my dad's last place, not the one he's in now. But Dad moved here, I don't know, about 2016-ish. So this got moved, and then it got stored in an open-air covered shed. But the moisture got into it, seeped in between the gaskets on the head, got down into one of the pools, a couple of little spots. So we pulled 2 pistons out, cleaned everything up, made sure the rings and everything were all good. These were the worst 2, and they weren't bad. That one there was pretty good, so we weren't worried about the rest. We lapped all the valves back in, just to check, make sure that there was no shit underneath the seats. So we're going to put a bit of stuff together. I cleaned the copper head gasket up, so I'm going to spray that with some copper spray shortly. But while I'm waiting on all that stuff to warm up a bit, I'm going to make a new stud for here, out of a bolt, out of a grade 8 bolt, and I'm going to just chase all the threads in here. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to do. We're going to put it all back together. We're going to torque the bottom end up. We're still trying to get torque specs. So I think we're just going to end up bringing the engine reconditioner and see if he's got those specs handy. I was trying to get it from Dave in Australia that's got the other Studebakers that we've used a lot of reference off. But yeah, I haven't heard back from him yet. He sent a message, but I just don't know whether he's got those specs or not. So yeah, basically I'll get making this, I'll chase the threads, and then probably by that stage add them in here and put them back together, I guess. So yeah, so I'll carry on. I'll get start made. Yeah, we'll see you in a bit later on. Right, so this is the bolt that I'm going to make it out of. This is the one I want to make. So this is quite a bit longer. And the main reason why I want to remake it, it's actually slightly bent through here, as you can possibly see. It's a little bit bent, and the thread's not so good in there. So just a little bit worried about pulling it up and then the thread's letting go. So might as well, if I can start with a nice clean bolt, got plenty of thread on there, and I've got all the right tabs and dies to recut it. So what I'll do is I'll probably cut this short here so that's the same length, and I'll make a slightly longer thread on this end, or I could do it the other way, it doesn't really matter. But I'm still going to have to shorten it, if you know what I mean, because I like to have the threads the right length and instead of winding it in too far or something like that. So it's easy enough. So I'll get it made. I'll bring it back to you. Right, yeah, so this is kind of where we're at. We're just, as you've probably seen from a distance, we're making some gaskets for the intake and exhaust. Just trying to get that sorted. We're just trying to fix some bits and pieces between the exhaust and the intake. Just getting a few pieces sorted out on it. What this here is a heater for the intake manifold off the exhaust. We're just trying to sort it out a little bit so it's not in such a weird position, because the exhaust manifold is quite restricted because of that. I'll show you what's going on over here. Unfortunately, I can't get a frickin' die nut around there, so Dad thinks he's got one of the hexagonal frickin' die nuts. Same, so we can just do it with a, start it and then do it with a frickin' spanner or a wrench or whatever. But yeah, these exhaust, it comes into here, so this is that part, these three come into here and it stops here, so it's got to go up and around that frickin' thing and then carries on. So yeah, what you could blow this piece out of the centre and flow it a bit and it would be way better, but yeah, this thing's 4.5 to 1, so compressions, it probably doesn't really need it anyway, but as long as the gases can get around there without being too frickin' bottled up, I guess. So yeah, we've got the sump on, the baffle, nuts and bolts are all sealed, this is on. We had to try and sort the taper on this a little bit. It just wasn't seating 100%. Well, think we've got that sorted. You know, there's lots of little bits and pieces we just found that just weren't 100%. So we'll just try to sort them out a little bit. Yeah, that's kind of what we've been doing. So obviously all this stuff's all buttoned up. We've got all the keepers in there and all that sort of bit. This is back on. We quickly checked to make sure that all the tappets were within reasonable spec, because we'll have to run it and get it hot and then try and adjust these, which is a bit of a pain in the ass because the intake and the exhaust sits over fucking top of it, so you can get into it but it's very awkward. So yeah, we're just trying to sort this stuff out, and I seen blasted a bit of crap in the around here, trying to clean that up. Yeah, the head's all ready to go. When I actually run the tap through all these new nuts, and some of them were actually freaking pretty tight with this tap. So yeah, we went through and made sure they were all right and they all fit and don't have any issues for when we go to actually put these in. So yeah, it's kind of where we're at. We haven't really got a lot further than that. Sorry, I'm just trying to freaking put the lid back on that. Thread sealer. So yeah, that's about all we've sort of got done at the moment. I've got the copper gasket sprayed with that copper stuff, but we will have to just give it a little, just a wee dusting before we do put it on. You've got to sort of put it on semi-tacky, but say it's been painted for ages, so we'll just give it a very light dusting, let it tack off, and then put it on, and basically you get a couple of hours to bolt the head down with this stuff. I could probably actually push that back so it's not in direct heat all the time. So yeah, oh, it's actually sticky. That's keeping it sticky. That's kind of handy. So yeah, the gasket's still sticky, so that's alright. It keeps it sticky, that heat. That's funny. Oh, it's alright, we can just slap it on and we don't even have to frig around with it. I thought it might have dried, but the heat might be just keeping it sticky, so that's quite cool. So when we're ready to put that on, we'll do that. So we'll just muck around with this stuff first. We could have put the head on before now, but we haven't. So, but yeah, Dad's just gone here to get a slightly different gasket material, which would be a bit better in between here, because we didn't really have enough. We had enough to make this, but not enough to make the other gasket in there. Once we got that apart and whatever, yeah, and he's getting a die nut hopefully that we can wind on there, and a couple other bits and pieces, I think. Yeah, so we'll have it back together by the end of the day, hopefully. It's amazing, just all the little farting around things that just slow you down, I guess. You know, you never know what's going to hold you up, but especially in all this old stuff. So, but we're getting there. We're getting there. All right, I'll carry on. Righty, so the reason we haven't got the head on is there's 3 oversized bolts that have been they got oversized threads in this block. I'll show you how. So there's one here, one over there, and one down the middle there. And because they're the next thread up, which will be 9/16, I'm guessing they'll be, since these are all 1/2 inch. When they made the studs, they've got a very slight shoulder on them. So as they wind down and they stop, there's a very slight shoulder. It sits up, slightly proud, and there's just not enough clearance in the holes in the head to accept it. So it's pushing up, so it's holding the head up, and that'll be probably why this gasket got so rusty, because when it was sitting on there and it never had all the other studs in it and was never really tightened down, it was always sitting proud. Yeah, because we put it down and we just, something didn't feel right, and Dad got the feeler gauge out, and just with it sitting down there with a few of those bolts, half by pulled down, we could wave a freaking feeler gauge in around here, there and everywhere. So that's why the gasket would have been so rusty, and why there was so much surface rust on both surfaces on the head on the block originally. So that's why it never sat down half decent with the nuts nipped up. So yeah, it was sitting proud, and those 3 studs were enough, and because they're spread fairly evenly, I think, one here and whatever it is, they're kind of in a triangle, so it's holding the whole head up. So yeah, we're going to sort that. So Dad's going to throw them in the lathe and just try and knock that little shoulder off, and then we're going to fit the head on in the morning. The other thing we're going to do, we had this on and off, because we made all the other gaskets and everything for here. We put it on, bolted it down, pulled that down, let it loose, and then pulled it down again, because we actually want to get this skimmed. I'm going to go drop it off now, mainly because like these aren't very freaking good here and here. They're probably the worst ones, and because this is all one plane and it's an intake and exhaust, we're going to do it all together because it bolts together. So yeah, we're just going to get that skimmed, so that won't matter if it doesn't go on for a couple of days until they get it skimmed. So I'll just drop it off the engineers and get them to hopefully just mill it off or surface grind it off or whatever, and just make sure it's true. And we're not worried about going way down, as long as we can get a decent sealing surface on all of them. It's not super critical that we've got a big wide, full engagement, as long as we get a reasonable across all of them, especially these 2. Everything else I think will come up pretty easy, but as long as we can get a reasonable engagement in that one, and that one will be right. So yeah, Dad was saying this gasket material here, and I'm not quite sure what the hell is in it, but it was his father's. And same with, I'm not 100% sure too, but I think this may have been too. This might be newer, but yeah, Dad said that was his father's, and they used to use it for repairing some of the old tractors way back when Dad was a kid. So I'm talking in the 50s. And it was his father's. So it could be even older than that. Who knows? So that's where that come from. So God knows what's in it, but that's what we made that gasket with. Anyway, I'm going to go drop this off, and yeah, we'll see in the morning. There'll probably, unfortunately, there'll be a heap of high speed in this, but it's just, it is what it is. I'll stop and, when I edit it, not that you guys are going to see it, but anyway, I'll stop it when I've explained the odd bit, but yeah. So yeah, we've got it all pretty much buttoned up. So yeah, it's just a matter of getting those frickin' 3 studs sorted. And that, if those 3 studs hadn't been a little bit proud, we would have had that on and torqued down. Anyway, yeah, it'd be nothing worse than thinking it was pulled down, damaging their head, or we go to frickin' crank it up and it just pisses fucking water everywhere when we put water in it. So yeah, anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Right, morning guys. So it's a little bit warmer this morning, but still got the heater on just to keep temps as reasonable for doing this stuff. So I've just cleaned that gasket, that copper stuff off, let it dry for a minute, and I just reapplied that just to make sure that's fresh on there. We just got the tank back so we can, it's been all tinned, so now we're going to put all that stuff together. And we're not far away from putting the head back on here, but we've still got an issue with one stud's being a little bit proud. We just wound, whatever one is, that one and that one back in, and we've got them down and we're happy. They're not sticking proud anymore. Basically the little shoulder that was on it, we just took the thread just past it. There's not much else we could sort of do. It's not ideal, but yeah, it's kind of, because this is slightly smaller than the other piece, the stud still wants to kind of wind in, but I think once it's all torqued down and all that sort of stuff, it should be fine. So yeah, it's kind of where we're at. And then I just had a bit of a general clean up and sweep up. As you can see, the floor looks a bit cleaner. It's not perfect, but it's a bit cleaner, not walking over and tripping over shit anymore. So I'll get the camera set up and do a bit more videoing, and hopefully, yeah, like in another, I don't know, hour or whatever, we'll have this all bolted down and torqued down and whatever. Oh, that's the other stud there, yeah. So Dad's just gone away to get a tap or a dial or something like that, just to run down there so we can get it to sit down and further, because I don't have a 9/16 tap running up to 1/2 inch, so we'll get that sorted and we'll get the head on, and then yeah, I guess I'll be probably working on that maybe. We'll see how we get on, because I know Dad's got to go do some other stuff today. We're basically planning on doing this, but we might better get that knocked together once we get this buttoned up. We can just lift it off and move it out of the road, so we can't do too much. I might be able to throw the flywheel on it over on the floor later on or something. I'd rather do that a bit closer to the floor, just in case we happen to drop it or something stupid, but I can do that later on by myself. Maybe. It's a shame these weren't, you know, threaded into there, but I guess what it is, what it is. So yeah, it's kind of where we're at there. I'll leave it at that. I won't waffle too long. Yeah, you'll be probably a heap more sort of high speed stuff, and a little bit of talking in between when we kind of get somewhere, or we strike another problem, I guess.
Well, yeah. We were going so well too, but that was pulling the thread. The thing was actually on the old stud. Doesn't appear to be in the block, but we pulled the head just to make sure that it wasn't pulling in the block. And it seems to be okay. Which is a real pain in the ass. But the fucking head, even though it's probably been cleaned out at some point, for some reason, there's a bit of scaly shit keeps freaking falling out of it. So I just tried to blow the crap out of it again to try and see if we can get all the crap out. Unfortunately, because I don't have a handy water source to hook up like a little like water blaster or whatever to try and blow it out, rinse it out, if you know what I mean. Yeah, it's a bit of a pain. So I'll sit to and clean all the shit off again. I just blew the crap out of the head. I was doing it. I took it over there and did that. So yeah, but we'll carry on. We'll come back to. Dad's going to go make another stud. So if we can get that sorted and try and get the fucking head on this thing. Alrighty guys, so again more issues, and like I said in the earlier videos, like I think the first one that we're doing this is, yeah, this is still the second one. I don't know why they just didn't make all new studs, and that's what's been giving us the problem. That was the first one that tore out. The three that were remade that are slightly bigger than the thread in the block, that was their first issue of putting the head on. Like they just had that little proud piece. And then some of these older ones that are, the threads are obviously a bit average. Yeah, there's some issues. So what I've got here is a bolt of the same thread. It's got quite a lot of thread on it. I'm going to wind this in here and just engage it a bit deeper because the holes do go quite a fair way in. Whereas these here, yeah, the thread doesn't go in terribly deep. It goes in a wee way, but there's more thread in them, the ones that don't go direct into jackets. So you're going to wind this in a bit further. I'm just trying to work out how much further it's going in. I might just take those, I'll take a couple of those washers off. I'm going to wind this in, see if it'll pull down. And torque down to the right settings. And if it does, we're going to obviously use this bolt with the more thread on it and chop it down and rethread it and make it right. Just Dad happened to have this one there that was the right thing, and it's got plenty of thread on it, and we can play with it to see if it will hold. Hopefully, so we have to pull this fucking head off again. This will be the third time if this doesn't work. Good though. Doesn't feel very fucking good. because otherwise we're going to have to put a larger thread in this too. So this one's in the block. This doesn't want to pull, so it's set it 60 pounds. I don't think it's going to hold. Damn it. Just back it off and lose a nut and just see if it'll wind in further. Just see how far it will actually wind in. It's actually crushing that washer. That might be part of the problem. Might find a better. Yeah, it's pulling that washer in. That's what the problem is. That might be right. I'll see if I can find a nut that's not so big. Here. There's got a way smaller hole in it. So it actually is very similar to pulling onto that hole. Might be right. It's slightly thicker than this one too, so I'll just leave the washer out. Just see if it'll hold. I reckon it really is pulling that washer in. Didn't think about that for a start. So, another go. See if it'll pull up. Come on, baby. Hold. Turn the block. Yes, you might be right. Yes. Right. Okay, I'll leave that there in the meantime. We'll just we'll take it off and chop it down and rethread the other end. Yeah, because as you can see, like the threads in that we're getting. Now that we've pulled it out, yeah, it's just tore the threads off this. We just weren't sure it was going to damage that, but we've made it so it goes in, you know, another 1/4 of an inch sort of type thing, just in case. But yeah, why they didn't make all new ones? Because there's a whole heap of new ones on here. Quite a lot, really. I would have just fucking been done with it and replaced the whole lot. You know, like they're 96 years old, you know. So, and the motor's been at board at least once before this. Look, it's out at 40 now. So it's, you know, it's probably had a couple of frickin', well, it could have had the head off, you know, 3 or 4 times, you know, or 5 times in its lifetime. You wouldn't know, but so yeah, why they just didn't replace all those studs would have probably saved a few issues. But yeah, so just trying to see which ones are still the originals. That looks like an original. I think that one might be original. That might be original, that one. I think it would be about half that being remade by the looks of it. So yeah, they might as well just made the other half. Alright, so that's holding, that's good. Alright, I'm going to leave that there in the meantime. Yeah, pull it out a bit later on. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to worry about doing much more with this at the moment because we need to get the manifold back, and we're going to clean up all those other bits to put back on the motor, so I might as well just leave it freaking in here. Actually, I'll wind the plugs back in. this. Then we look over here. Right, so next up, just trying to sort these handles out just to make sure that I can put them together properly, and just got to detail these a little bit, just sand all the edges off and whatever. But the only little issue, well, it's not really an issue, but because this here is very open, and with a spring, the original spring in there, and then where that little C clip is here, there. When that's in there properly, it's not too bad. It's easy to get into, but because these here are not quite so open, because that's not open like that is, it's not very easy to get in a clip in there. So hopefully one of these will work. Another way. So we're hoping that one of these little E-clips will work and do the job. Work. I think that'll do it. As long as that little clip stays in place, I think that'll work. Let me see in there. I might just turn the camera around, hold on. Right, so yeah, I think that'll work, as long as it don't break or do anything stupid like fly out and whatever. I think that's going to work, so that's cool. Right, yeah, so I think that'll work nicely. I may have to get maybe a small washer and just poke a little light washer that maybe will fit around there and just sit on top of that spring, but I think it should be okay. I don't think it's going to pop off there or anything. I think it should be alright. Feels right, if you know what I mean. And that sort of moves around, going like it's not, it sort of moves quite nicely, so I think that'll be fine. I really do think that'll be fine. So yeah, and I think I said the other day that I managed to knock that little bit of weld off with the Rolox. So yeah, I've just got to go around, take the harsh edges off, and do a little bit of sanding on the back surface. I have started in between doing bits and pieces on there. Won't just, you know, Dad's gone away and done a couple of bits and pieces occasionally, so it just gave me the opportunity to come back and just give that should have cleaned up when we were mucking around with that, and then do a little bit of work on these bits and pieces. So yeah, it's cool. So I know that'll work. So yeah, the generator. I wasn't sure what was going on with this. I thought maybe it might have been done and then just bolted back on the motor, and it hadn't been cleaned up on the outside. But to me, because there's quite a bit of crap on the floor, this stuff that all blew out of it. So I'm going to give it to Dad, and he's going to strip them down and have a play with them while I just do other stuff. And then he's going to check them and clean them up and see if they'll work. And then we'll put them back together, you know, paint it up and put it back on. So yeah, and it looks like this has been broken off at some stage and been re-welded back on by the looks of it. But I've done a reasonable job of repairing it at the time. So yeah, I'll put this back on, and yeah, I guess we'll drop that off to Dad tonight, since he's got other stuff to do this afternoon. It's been fucking handy having them here, because that would have taken me forever to do that shit by myself. That is probably the only disadvantage of doing this sort of stuff by yourself. It's just an extra set of hands can make a hell of a fucking difference. Make a hell of a difference when you're dealing with stuff like that. You know, it's just awkward and time consuming when you're trying to muck around with that. So it's sorted. Yeah, and I'll get that other piece. I'll throw that in the back of the car. We'll drop that off later. So yeah, I think I'll just sort these door handles out. I think, or mark the doors, mask them off. I think I've got enough. Oh yeah, I might have enough masking tape. I know I'm fucking just about out of that shit. Mark all these and put some tape on there. And so basically I'll go like this. So I'm not drilling direct on, you know, I can mark it, then we can come in here gently, and I'm not drilling straight onto the top of the paint, if you know what I mean. Just, it's less likely to damage anything. Now we've actually got door handles we can do it with. And we've got, it's kind of why I hadn't done it, to be honest, because I never really had the right door handles, and I thought just in case all this shit ends up being, you know, if we happen to buy door handles, instead of getting one of these made and copied, but if we happen to buy them from somewhere, like they were maybe like, because we did look at Model T handles that they look very similar, but they're offset, not symmetrical. Now if that happened to be different, it's kind of why I never put holes in here, because I thought, well, you know, if you put holes in there and then it's wrong for what you end up using, then you're really in the crap. You know what I mean? But so yeah, they all look shit up there when they're all nickeled up, and then we'll just have to put a little bit of filler on here, and the centers will be painted black. But at least now I can get these all on here. I'll just use the one to do it, because I can guarantee these will all be in the CNC machine, so they'll all be exactly the same. I can get all these drilled and just make sure all the measurements are really close from here to here. Put the handle and double check it. Make sure put a couple of marks on here, make sure it's, mind you, the car's not sitting. I'll make sure it's even from here to here to here to here. That's about all I can do. Just make sure that they are even with the car, because the car's not sitting flat. Just doesn't help. Get these on here. So yeah, that's what I'll do now. Anyway. Fucking lovely. Right. Job done. Let's make some gaskets to go in behind. Fucking little threads pissing me off my hat. That one right there. See? See that one? It's pissing me off. Stop it. Right. Right. Stop waffling.
Welcome to Iron Outlaws. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this.